Hey, everybody. Good morning. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are across the world today, May 27th. Got a lot to talk about. I know many of you may have just seen that press conference that took place down in Uvalde, Texas. It was very difficult. It was very difficult to watch that. It really, really was, for many different reasons, right? So many of us are obtaining, we're getting basically more details, a timeline of events, so to speak. A timeline that police have now released. I think the big word for today is failure. That's what I think. The big word for today is absolutely failure. And while all this is going on in Uvalde, the aftermath of this massacre of those children at Robb Elementary School, the NRA is going ahead with a convention this weekend. Governor Greg Abbott has canceled his in-person appearance, which was to take place today at the NRA's, the National Rifle Association's annual meeting in Houston. And has said that he will attend a news conference in Uvalde, Texas instead. But no, don't think that his heart isn't with them, because he is going to ensure that a video message is released for those at the NRA meeting conference. So he can't be there in person, but he's going to make sure that he releases a video message, because he's there in spirit, right? Governor Greg Abbott is walking around with lots of egg on his face right now. He just signed into law down here in Texas. He just signed into law new gun laws, actually, that made it easier for people to get their hands on guns. And listen, the topic of gun control has now reached a fever pitch. And listen, I'm going to say this, but don't in any way think that I'm saying this should ever happen or would be okay if it ever happened, okay? But listen, we've got people massacring our children at schools, right? Grocery stores, malls, churches. Has anyone ever had a scene or even the idea of a mass shooting event even happening at an NRA convention or meeting? Is any of these people, have any of their lives ever been touched by gun violence, I guess, is really my main question. Protesters continue today on May 27th to stand outside the location where this meeting is to be held down in Houston, and they are protesting. Again, I think that the feeling towards this topic has reached a fever pitch. So again, although Governor Greg Abbott won't be in person, he will be there in spirit. He made sure of that. Investigators are still working to piece together the timeline to explain how 18-year-old gunman Salvador Ramos was able to walk up to a school with a rifle, enter through an unlocked door that had been propped open, and somehow barricaded himself inside a classroom for nearly an hour as he killed 19 children and 2 teachers at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas on May 24th. Texas official has said that the school district police chief's decision to not have officers immediately try to breach this classroom and engage the gunman was absolutely wrong. President Biden and the First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, will also be visiting Uvalde on Sunday. Photos are now coming out that show the desperate moments that were occurring outside of Robb Elementary School as those students were climbing out of windows to escape. Parents were held back by police officers with guns just as powerful as the ones that Salvador Ramos had in that classroom. They spent more energy holding back those parents than going in there and storming that classroom and killing Salvador Ramos dead. One of the young survivors has said that she and her classmates were watching a movie, Lilo and Stitch, when the shooter entered their classroom. Shot her teacher, many of her friends. Just right prior to shooting one of the teachers, the shooter said, "Good night." He also told the children that it was, quote, "time to die." The shooter was in this school for up to an entire hour. The husband of Irma Garcia, one of the 2 teachers that was killed in this massacre, died yesterday from the grief. Passed away, had a heart attack. He had just laid flowers at the cross. The cross, there's 21 of them actually that are currently sitting in the front yard area of Robb Elementary School. He had just laid flowers there. And although he did it stoically, he was grieving immensely, and he passed away. I want you to look at the screen. I want you to look at the screen. These bastards. Look at these bastards. Look at them. Look at them laughing. Look at them. Look at them. I want you to look at the screen. What you're looking at is a zoomed in camera shot of members of the NRA standing there while being guarded by police, laughing at the protesters. Look at these three white men. Look at them. They're laughing. They think this shit is funny. Look at them. Big smiles on their faces. They're so proud. They're so proud of their guns. I guess they think their dicks are bigger, right? Because they have guns. Oh, AR-15s and let's get a few bump stocks. Why don't we, huh? Look at them. Who are these men? What's so funny? Look at this. Look at this. They're laughing. They're laughing. These little dick men with little dick syndrome who think their guns make them more manly. Look at them. It's a fucking joke. It's a joke to them. It's a joke to these men. Have any of their kids ever been slaughtered and massacred in an elementary school? Or do they send their kids to school every day expecting their kids to come home? Shame. Shame. And what's even more shameful is when white people, see, you got to play the game like they play the game. White people use their money. They use their money. And they're laughing, pointing, joking, while being guarded by these fucking police officers, these crooked fucking police officers. What's wrong with this picture? What is wrong with this picture? It feels like they're antagonizing, poking, trucks driving past with digital TV boards with the names of those that have been massacred in schools across the United States. The protests again have reached a fever pitch, while these little pussy ass NRA bastards stand guarded by police officers. Fucking joke. I don't think I've ever seen anything so split. People are willing to die for those fucking guns. No one, they don't think that any sort of common sense needs to be applied here, I guess. Could you imagine? Could you imagine losing someone to gun violence? Especially when it's a situation where your children are literally being massacred and the parents are being held at bay by police officers. Now you mean to tell me that you all at the NRA are that heartless that you would laugh and point until it happens to them? Grief has become anger for many. The first conversation that started taking place was about gun control. Be very, very careful who you poke at and who you prod, who you joke at, especially when you're dealing with a parent that's grieving. That's a recipe for disaster. The FBI is now on the scene. Over 200 FBI personnel are on the scene in Uvalde. FBI Special Agent Oliver Rich also spoke at the press conference today. He stood off to the side. It was noticeable. Oliver Rich leads the FBI San Antonio field office and has addressed the possibility of an independent investigation. Oliver Rich said, quote, "First, I want to say I understand there are a lot of questions, a lot of frustration, and our hearts go out to the families and victims of this tragedy," end quote. I would encourage Oliver Rich to move forward with that independent investigation. You cannot trust the Uvalde police. You cannot trust the Texas Department of Public Safety. They are all compromised. Salvador Ramos managed to stand outside of this elementary school and shoot at it for several minutes before he made his way in through a door that had been propped open. The one thing I noticed in this press conference was that police seemed to be shifting the blame to the teacher that propped the door open or had propped the door open. But didn't seem to want to take blame for the fact that for over an hour, they stood outside that school while that man massacred 21 people. One of the students covered herself with the blood of her dead classmate and played dead to survive. The FBI says they are going to assist in the investigation, provide support to the community, and that a total of 200 people from the Bureau are currently working on this situation. Two calls to 911 from children took place during this deadly shooting. One of those children that made the call was murdered. As the children whispered in the phone. Near to 12:15 p.m., over 30 minutes after Salvador Ramos managed to get into that school. And then at 12:36, almost an hour, on that 911 call, gunshots are heard. The children were begging the police to come and save them. Now, Texas Department of Public Safety Colonel Stephen McGraw comes out in jawing motion, and I say that sarcastically, with all that jaw action going on at the podium, says that it was, quote, the wrong decision, end quote, not to immediately breach that classroom door. He sat there, he took questions from reporters during the news conference today. And he criticized some aspects of the police response to the shooting, in particular regarding the time it took for officers to engage with the gunman. Rather than immediately try to breach the classroom and engage with the gunman, Colonel Stephen McCraw, the commander, who he later identified as the school district's chief of police, decided that there was time to retrieve the keys and wait for a tactical team with the equipment to go ahead and breach the door and take on the subject. Because, in his words, it was, quote, a decision that was made because this was a barricaded subject situation. After Columbine, there was a protocol that was adopted by the state of Texas and police departments within the state of Texas that during a school shooting of that nature, you immediately breach, period. And you do anything possible to try to salvage some life. You think it was the wrong decision? Yeah, it was the wrong decision. What you mean? Entry should have been made immediately. It was a very difficult press conference to watch. You know what's crazy? This kid, he asked his sister to buy a gun for him last year. She flat out refused, according to police. There was evidence that this guy was not only disturbed, but that he was going to do something really bad. What is the protocol to report something like that? What is the protocol? What does one do? If they get added to a chat and some weirdo says, yo, I can't wait to get these new guns. Again, keep in mind, this kid hadn't even graduated high school, but he still managed to get his hands on not one, but 2 assault rifles. A handgun, okay? He wasn't even old enough to buy cigarettes. Imagine being added to an Instagram chat. And some weirdo within the chat says, hey, I'm going to go buy a new gun. I'm going to go shoot up an elementary school. What is the protocol to report something like that? Officials found 58 magazines, gun magazines, at the school. 58. Who needs 50 plus gun magazines for protection? Eleven of those magazines were found inside the school. 3 were on Salvador Ramos's body. 2 of the magazines were in classroom 112. 6 were inside classroom 111, and 5 of the magazines were on the ground, and 1 was in the rifle. There were 32 magazines outside the school found on school property. 1 was just outside the school building, and 31 were in the suspect's backpack, which for some reason he did not take into the classrooms with him. There were also 15 magazines at the site where he crashed that truck before entering the school. There were also 2 additional gun magazines found at the suspect's residence. The gunman purchased and had a total of 1,657 total rounds of ammunition 315 of the rounds were inside the school, and 142 of those were spent cartridges. He fired more than 100 rounds before entering the school. The carnage took place in rooms 111 and 112. I look at photos of Salvador Ramos, and I can immediately tell this is a disturbed individual. So I sort of wonder, to the man or woman that sold him those assault rifles, did they ever think once that maybe they should, poke and prod a little bit, make sure that they're not selling guns to a lunatic? Did that ever cross their mind? Or was it the money? The money's too good. The money's too good. Got to get that money. Shout out to everybody who is here. I appreciate that. What's up, Third Eye? Lisa, Pat, Natalie, Lady Warrior. Hello. Hello. Chiari. Let's see. Haven't Sins in the building. Sins in the building. Listen. The proud banner of Houston 2022. NRA, National Rifle Association. 14 acres of guns and gear as they continue to be guarded by police officers that are paid by our tax dollars. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? Police on horseback. Make America Great Again hats. They stand over there while the police stand in front guarding them, protecting them. They're laughing. They're laughing. They're joking. They're pointing. It's going to be real crazy in Houston this weekend, y'all. I just can feel it. Thanks to everybody who came through. Until next time.